Who has the best offensive line in the SEC? In South Carolina with some more injury news. Locked on SEC starts now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Today's episode is brought to you by KALSHI. For a limited time, download the KALSHI app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. Really excited about today's show. Got a real special guest, Landon Tengwall, going to join the show. If you don't know who that is, he's a former Penn State O-lineman who has been doing a lot of film study on his YouTube show the last year plus, and he's been creating quite a following, and guy really knows his stuff. And so we're going to have him on to talk. We'll pose a question: who has the best offensive line in the SEC this season, and also get his thoughts on those injuries at Oklahoma and Texas. And he's got some answer on who's going to fill in for those guys and what those teams can expect with those guys filling in. So really great conversation with him. That's coming up in segment 2 and 3. You don't want to miss that. But first, we got to get you caught up with the news going on around the conference. So we start over at South Carolina as the hits just keep coming for them. We just found out a couple days ago that they lost 2 of their wide receivers for the year. And according to On3's Chris Lowe, star pass rusher Dylan Stewart and offensive tackle Jakarius Peak are not expected to be ready for the start of the 2026 season as they recover from injuries. Now, this comes days, like we said, after we found out wide receiver Jaden Gibson and wide receiver Jaden Sellers will miss the entire of the season. Now, when healthy, Dylan Stewart, arguably one of the best pass rushers in the country coming off the edge. 22.5 tackles for a loss, 11 sacks, 6 forced fumbles over his 2 seasons with the Gamecocks. He is reportedly dealing with a back injury that has been an issue with him dating back to last season. He was limited throughout the spring and apparently still giving him problems. So, is this going to be something where they just kind of wait until the schedule picks up for South Carolina and get him out there in the big important games when they need him? We'll see. Now, Jakarius Peak, he was one of the big transfer portal additions for South Carolina this offseason, arguably their best. Joined the Gamecocks after 3 seasons over at NC State, and he is expected to be one of their starting offensive tackles this season. But he suffered a knee injury back in February, playing a pickup basketball game, and missed spring practice. But South Carolina still hopes to get him on the field at some point. The silver lining for South Carolina, they got an easy start to the season. They will play Kent State and Towson the first 2 weeks of the season before they dip their foot in the water and play and host Mississippi State in their SEC opener. So schedule sets up really well to start the year for Shane Beamer and company, and maybe they can weather the storm on some of these early season injuries. But Dylan Stewart's the big one, man. That's a guy who, this is his money year, wants to make that jump to the NFL after this. Would really like to see him go out on top with a really big season. All right, how about some other news happening around the conference? How about over at Texas A&M? They are set to make a very late addition to this college football season roster. According to Texags, the Aggies have added defensive back commit Loya Valade to their 2026 team. He was a commit for 2027 and decided to reclassify to this season. He's set to enroll in College Station next week. He posted on social media 2027 gig him, and is expected to move to College Station next week and join the Aggies. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not he will contribute for the Aggies this year, despite missing basically all the offseason workouts and everything else. But he chose A&M over offers from programs like Florida and Miami. He's 5'11", 180 pounds from Boca Raton, Florida. Originally from Canada, also spent time at multiple high schools in Tennessee before ending up in Boca. He's regarded as a 3-star prospect in the class, and so he'll reclassify and join the Aggies about as late in the game as you can get. Now, one other note on the Aggies: they will kick off their season at home against Missouri State in Week 1, while Missouri State just named their starting quarterback transfer Skylar Locklear is going to start their opener. He's 5'11", spent the first 2 seasons of his career at Austin Peay, and his last 2 seasons at UTEP. Made 16 starts at UTEP the last couple of seasons, with 3,000 yards and 24 touchdowns, passing with 10 rushing scores. So Skylar Locklear will be the starter for Missouri State against A&M in their season opener. How about this story? Multiple former SEC players granted eligibility for the upcoming season. According to On3's Pete Nakos, ex-LSU edge rusher Jack Pyburn and former Ole Miss safety Ory Williams are among the players who were granted a temporary restraining order by a Louisiana judge on Wednesday. The TRO allows those players to enter the transfer portal and be eligible for the upcoming season. That follows a series of other court rulings in recent weeks that have resulted in additional eligibility for those class of 2022 athletes that get a fifth year as part of that new 5-for-5 or 5-in-5 policy. So for now, Pyburn and Williams and numerous other players are currently eligible to play college football in 2026. Just don't know if they're going to. And the interesting part for Pyburn is he signed an undrafted, contract with the Tampa Bay Bucks. He recorded 2 sacks for the Bucks in their preseason game just last week. So, if he makes the team with the Bucks, why would he go back to college? But according to CBS's Matt Zenitz, he put out a whole list, and it includes Ole Miss defensive lineman Xavier Harris, ex-standout tight end Daquan Wright, and former South Carolina standout safety have all been granted TROs. So I don't know. We're going to find out what happens with this. I'm not the biggest fan of trying to bring guys back from, had even a workout or whatever, spent some time with a pro team. It just feels weird to bring them back to college. And this late in the game, the season's literally about to start. To bring these guys back to college, it just feels weird. All right, lastly, the SEC announced their 2026 preseason coaches all SEC team, and no big surprise, but looking at the first team, it's Trinidad Chambliss, quarterback, Kejuan Lacey and Ahmad Hardy at running back, Cam Coleman and Mario Craver, your receivers, Trades Green, your tight end, and your O-line, Trevor Goosby, Caden Green, Jordan Seaton, Ernest Green, and Drew Bobo, with Mario Craver as your all-purpose. And then your defensive line, Colin Simmons, Dylan Stewart, Prince Will, Uman Mielen, and Will Eccles. Linebackers, Xavier Atkins, Whit Weeks, Rasheem Biles, and your defensive backs, KJ Bolden, Bray Hubbard, Xavier Brown, and Ellis Robinson. I'm running through those because, let's be honest, that's kind of how all the preseason lists have looked for the SEC. Coaches poll, AP, all of them. It's a lot of the same guys who we expect to have big years in the SEC. So without further ado, we will get to our guests coming up next, talking some on the SEC and offensive line. I think you're really going to like this guy. I like him a lot. Great guest and great insight into the offensive line for a lot of teams around the SEC. That's coming your way next. Hey guys, before the season even kicks off, everybody's making predictions. Who's going to win the division? Who makes playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On KALSHI, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Can Auburn win at least 8 games this season? Auburn is currently trading at 42%, meaning a $100 trade pays out $239 if they reach 8 wins. On KALSHI, you're trading against your peers in a live market, meaning there's no house, and as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position, trade the pick, the game, and more on KALSHI. Download the KALSHI app and use our code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. That is KALSHI, KALSHI. Trade on anything. Must be 18 years or older. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. KALSHI products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more info, see kalshi.com/regulatory. Run along here. Pleasure now to be talking with Landon Tengwall. He's a national college football analyst, host of the Landon Tengwall Show, doing some film study. Been giving us some great breakdowns lately on some offensive linemen and tons of great film work he's been doing out there. So definitely check out his stuff. Landon, welcome into the show, man.
Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to talk some SEC offensive linemen.
Yeah, it's fun, man. I've been watching some of your videos as of late, and we've had some key injuries in the SEC, so I thought nobody better to get on than you. And so let's jump into it. We heard the news a couple days ago that Trevor Goosby, the all-everything left tackle for Texas, is injured. He's going to miss a little time. The question is, how long into the season is this thing going to carry? But you've been doing a little film study on some of the guys that maybe are going to fill in. Give me your thoughts on the absence of Goosby and what this Texas O-line is going to look like.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, he is one of the best offensive linemen in all of college football. So that hurts. The good news is that you are going to get him back. It's just a matter of when. And so who can hold down that spot for you? Now, reports out of Texas practice is that Andre Cojoe is going to be repping at left tackle 1, or that's where he was at in practice so far. So that's kind of the guy we're looking at going into year 3. He's a guy that missed all of last year. He was thought to maybe be battling with Brandon Baker for that right tackle job going into 2025, has a season-ending injury, so we didn't get to see him at all last year. Now, I did kind of dive into his tape. Now, It was 2024 tape. It was a young dude. So there's only so much you can take, but you can still take away who a player is. Very physical. My number one takeaway, that fundamentally he was very sound as a freshman. A guy that always played with the base, had pretty good hands. He only had like 4 pass blocking snaps. I think it was about 32 total snaps that I got to look at. But if there's any tape out there, I'm going to find it and I'm going to try to dive into the player. So it strikes me as, obviously a player that hasn't played ball in a long time, but it does seem like what I even saw from him as a freshman, that he's going to be able to hold this down. Now, the question is, can he hold it down against Ohio State? I think that's the big one. I think that's where everybody's circling. Can Goosby get back against Ohio State? And the hard part that we don't really know is that when you have these bone bruises and, you just don't really know. It's kind of a pain thing. That's a big piece of it, first and foremost. It's just, what can Goosby do? And what do you want to make him do? And it's not something that really you can, I'm not a doctor at all, so I'm sure you can technically hurt it further, but it's not like an injury, like a hamstring that you're going to just re-pull. But you do worry about then if you start to favor something else, can that hurt your other leg? And so you want to be careful in rushing Goosby back, but you also want to win that Ohio State game. So I think that's where a lot of people are looking, but who knows? He could go out there and start week 1. I think that's probably more unlikely than it is likely. But I think you are feeling like you were in a decent spot with Andre Cojoe, and they are confident in him. And like I said, a guy that they were feeling maybe could have started for them in 2025 if he didn't have that injury. But I think the overall theme that I'm getting from this Texas offensive line is that I'm a little worried about is the cohesion. I've said I think this is one of the most talented offensive line as in a vacuum. Each guy, when you look at them, it's like Siani, oh my God, Goosby. I'm huge on Brandon Baker, but you have Lawrence Seymour, who came over, and you think, hey, Lawrence Seymour is probably going to start at left guard for us. Well, he didn't get to play in spring ball because he had to come over late. He had to make sure he graduated, so you missed spring ball. And now he's been banged up throughout camp. Well, enter in Dylan Sikorsky, who's coming over from Oregon State, a guard transfer, and he's playing really, really well. And now they're saying, hey, he's the one repping at ones with the left guard. And so it's like, okay, we got all these different moving pieces. None of these guys have played true snaps next to each other. Brandon Baker and Robertson are really the only ones, and they didn't even play next to each other. Brandon Baker's always been a tackle, so they don't actually ever have any combo blocks together. So that's my main worry about this Texas offensive line, is just the cohesion and the combo blocks and dealing with stunts and blitzes and their communication. How is that going? But I will have a film breakdown on my channel out. I don't know when this is going out, but I'm going to have, as soon as I'm done with this, I'm turning around Andre Cojoe. We got a film breakdown on his 32 plays from 2024. If you want to be a true O-line sicko, you can check that out on my channel.
Yeah, it's just interesting for a team that, and look, we were looking at the schedule yesterday. I mean, the schedule is brutal for Texas, for a team that people have national championship hopes for this team. I mean, Arch Manning's going to have to be electric, particularly if this O-line's having to shift some pieces around, and we'll see what happens. Some interesting news over at their rival, Oklahoma, as their starting center, Jake Michaela, went down with a knee injury, and the transfer center, Caleb Nitta, looking to, be the guy that fills in. It's funny, we had Caleb on our show back in the spring, and, he was talking about it, that, yeah, there was kind of a log jam there at center, but he understood what he was getting into when he transferred to Oklahoma, and now an opportunity arises. And you looked at some of his film. I remember watching him, when they played LSU last year, and he was not afraid. He was playing really, really well in that game. And so, Caleb Nitta may be a guy that Oklahoma fans can believe in at center to fill in there while Jake's out.
Yeah, I went into and I looked at it, and honestly, I would say, I think there are some questions in totality of what the right side of that offensive line is going to be like in Oklahoma. Obviously, got Amarian Harris coming over from Arkansas, but someone that kind of played guard and tackle, but you're trusting him to play that right tackle spot, and Ryan Foje, a young guy playing right guard. But really, when I watch Michaela, this is a 6'6" center. And there were times where there were certain things where I was like, hey, he needs to get a lot better as a puller at the point of attack. He's great in pass pro, but the point of attack in the run game, I'm like, hey, I need a little bit more acceleration. I need you to explode into this. When I turned on Nitta's tape, I'm like, man, he's kind of got all the goods that I want, and a little bit more of that center build, 6'2", 305 pounds. But he explodes. He accelerates. Now, he doesn't, it's not maybe as physically gifted. He's not like extremely athletic, but he makes a lot of these reach blocks and these back blocks off a straight hustle and heart. Like, my favorite part that I really noticed on his tape on this film breakdown I did on him over on my channel, like, is that his feet never stop moving. And it's not even just in run game where his feet never stop moving. In pass pro, he will clean stuff up. If he sees a twist and a stunt, he'll get up under a guy's shoulder pads and he'll run them into the other defensive lineman and just pancake everybody. Like, I was thoroughly impressed. And I specifically, in my film breakdown, because I knew a lot of people were going to say, hey, Western Kentucky, that's cool. He can do it there. Can he do it here? I purposely put, I'd say about 80% of the clips are against LSU, because I want to say, hey, he was doing this against SEC competition. And not only was he just handling stuff, like he was giving them some business there, those defensive linemen for LSU. And I thought he was playing some high level football. So it's really a spot that I'm actually really not that worried about. And I am just throwing this out there. I think any Oklahoma fan watching this is going to say, oh, you're freaking insane. Stop that. I think he's going to play well enough that there will be a conversation of an injured coming back Michaela. What do we want to do here? I'm just posing that. I think that might happen. Yep. That's how much confidence I have in Caleb Nitta.
That's interesting. Wally Pipp. It happens all the time, guys. Quick thought on Tennessee. I know Wendell Moy's a guy who's been getting a lot of offseason love for them, but I saw you did some study on Ory Williams, the LSU transfer that plugs in there at right tackle. But David Sanders, Sam Pendleton. I mean, I kind of like this Tennessee offensive line.
Yeah, I think it's a damn good group that has not gotten enough love at all. And I think you got, obviously, like you said, you got some young guys coming in Jesse Perry and David Sanders really going to be able to take that next step. When you're kind of thrown in there as a young guy and you're in the SEC just trying to survive as an offensive lineman, it's hard. And especially the world you're in now, going against 25-year-olds at 18. And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to stay above water. And he did a very good job. So I think this is definitely an offensive line yet. Not enough love is being shown to them. I think a lot of people, we'll get to that. I think a lot of people are talking about some of the other, Texas, Georgia. But I think Tennessee has a good fight to say, hey, I'm one of the best offensive lines, not only in the SEC, but in all of college football. And I'll tell you, I'm really high on Ory Williams at right tackle. This is a guy, when I turn on his tape, first 5 plays, I'm like, he can't go this hard. There's no way he goes this hard this entire game. And it's every single play is through the whistle, not to the whistle. He's trying to just, and it's a mindset thing. And I having been on offensive line, it totally changes the way everybody else thinks. And if you have one guy that is constantly fighting through the whistle and the ref has to come over and say, hey, I need you to chill out a little bit, that is infectious to the rest of the offensive line, and it creates a mindset. And I think that's what you want to see, especially from these offensive lines that, obviously in the middle, they're a little bit older, but, younger in other spots. You want that. You want to instill a certain mindset of, hey, this is the culture of the offensive line room, and we're just going to be a bunch of physical MFers, and we're going to take it to them. So I like what I see there. This is definitely an offensive line I'm circling and saying, hey, I think people are going to be talking about them more and more as we get deeper into the season.
Continue our conversation with Landon Tengwall, talking some on the O-line across the SEC. When you look across it, which O-line, in your opinion, is the best going into this season?
You got to give it to Georgia. I think number one, not only the talent, but the overall depth that you have. I think that's the one I'm circling. I'll tell you what, Juan Gadsden at right tackle. Get ready. If you don't know that name, you're going to learn that name. This is a massive human being. He's going to be a true sophomore, but 6'7", 350, 60 pounds in that range. I think he's dropped a little bit of weight here to be able to move a little bit better. But I'm talking, he's got all the tools that you want, and nasty. Gets downfield. There's some plays in his true freshman year where he's covering down on screen passes, just taking out safeties. So really high there. You obviously, you got Drew Bobo at center, a guy that has just played some really, really good football. And you're confident in him leading that offensive line. I think anytime you look at, who is going to be the best offensive line in college football or the SEC, and anytime I have a veteran center that I know can make the calls and he's going to be able to handle the offensive line, and that's not something that Gunnar Stockton even has to worry about, we're in a pretty damn good place, especially when, you have that relationship with the offensive coordinator too. So we're at home together talking over play calls and what do I need to do as a center. So I'm really high on them. I think Dontrell Glover as well continues to put on really, really good tape, and he's going to be someone that's going to be talked about in NFL circles as he continues to grow. And then Ernest Green is also just that classic Georgia tackle. I mean, you've seen it. They've pumped them out year after year. Big body, great arms, uses his hands really, really well in pass pro, especially independent hands. So I think this is going to be a big year for the Georgia offensive line. And I don't know. It's kind of like, I feel like everybody's talking about different teams who's going to pop up. And although it feels like, everybody voted, hey, Georgia's the most likely to take the SEC and maybe even get to the Natty. I don't know. It's almost like people are kind of forget about Georgia because they're just so good consistently. Don't forget about them. And I really do believe they're going to be able to lean on this offensive line for whatever they need.
Yeah, Zyke Helton, we've heard great things about him. A true freshman, going to plug right in at right guard. It's interesting with Georgia, man. They plugged in some true freshmen last year. Gaston was one of them. He was awesome. If Helton is the same way, they're set there. I mean, they're going to have dudes for years there on that O-line for Georgia.
I know, and it's interesting the whole Helton situation of he was a 3-star, right? Like he wasn't some. It's not like this is some like 5-star come in. It's not Jackson Cantwell down at Miami. It's like, hey, we got a guy. And this is a guy that we feel like could come out and ball, and he's shown it, in practice against some damn good Georgia defenders. So, if they're confident in that, hey, I'm excited to see it. And I do love the fact that really you look around, and we have a ton of true freshman offensive linemen pushing to be able to play. We got a guy in Oklahoma. There's 2 out in Miami. There's 2 in Oregon. Obviously, you like I said, you got Helton here in Georgia. This is probably, I don't know if I've ever in recent memory remember this many true freshmen starting on the offensive line around college football. And I think it's cool to see as someone who loves offensive line play.
Yeah, welcome to the NIL/transfer portal era. It's you got a guy, you play him now because he ain't gonna stick around if you don't play him. So
absolutely.
Quick thought on LSU. I don't know how much you've been able to look at them, but Jordan Seaton, the guy that grabbed everybody's attention, this offseason, was one of the highest ranked tackles in the portal. LSU had to pay a pretty good penny to get him, but looks like a guy. I mean, I've seen mock drafts. They've got him as a lock to be a first-round pick next year in the draft. So, what do you make of LSU? Obviously, Braylon Moore back at center, a veteran there, but a lot of new at LSU. But Jordan Seaton seems like a guy that's just going to settle right in there at that left tackle spot.
Yeah, Jordan Seaton, actually a guy I've known since he's probably like 9 years old. So he came up. I remember he'd come to all the Penn State games when I played at Penn State, and I always make fun. He was a fat kid, and we'd always talk. He always had like a big belly when he got to Colorado. He was that way, and then just got yoked. And you see this guy, and you're like, he is everything that you want in a left tackle. And I've studied plenty of his tape. Just a truly elite pass protector. There's really no questions. The feet, the hands, has all the tools in the tool belt that you want from a left tackle in terms of how he utilizes his hands and different things he can do between going double under or independent hands or just a strong 2-hand punch. I think the big question for Jordan Seaton going into this year is, can we see some more dominant run blocking? Because when you turn on his tape, that's the one thing it does lack a little bit, is that I just took a man from point A to point B against his will and buried him in the dirt. Now, don't get me wrong. You get some very good run blocking, and you get some plays where, he's pulling, and it's like, there's no way an offensive lineman's moving like that. I mean, you want to talk about acceleration and just get going as a puller. He's got all of that. But I want a little bit more of that, hey, I need to base up this 5 technique, and I want to just be able to take him for a ride in the SEC. So I'd like to see that out of him. Obviously, you have a little bit of movement on that offensive line as a whole. You had a couple guys that 2 of them went to, I forget, two former LSU offensive linemen transferred. Was it Alabama? It was one of them.
A&M, I think.
A&M. It was Texas A&M, yes. And so I thought both of them. I was like, it's not awful losses there. But overall, that is an offensive line I'm curious about, because I think you have some talent, but some of it is unproven. You obviously have Ba that's coming from Maryland. So I think that's someone that I'm definitely curious and intrigued about to see kind of how he can continue to put that all together. He's obviously an older guy, has played some good football. But I think the thing you look at as this offensive line is really not too much youth. It's a lot of older guys. So I'm hoping that kind of helps them be able to gel and put this all together and really protect Sam Levitt and get the ground game going.
One more for you, Landon. I could do this all day with you, man. We could just talk every offensive line. Alabama is one that everybody has their eyes on, and man, Jackson Lloyd is a guy that a lot is going to be expected of him. They've talked very highly about him, but Michael Carroll as well. it's interesting, Landon. I don't know if I've ever seen Alabama do this. Like they name them starters in the spring. And I went, man, that is to develop confidence in those guys and go, hey, you're our guys now, go prove it that this was the right decision, or man, they don't have any options, and so they have to name these guys a starter. But Jackson Lloyd, Michael Carroll, and then bringing in a couple of transfers, Delgatti at center. What do you make of the Bama line?
Yeah, so this is actually, I think it's the first one I studied back at the beginning of spring ball, and I was curious what was kind of going to happen, right? And I remember, what was it? It was like day 2 or day 3. They come out and they're like, "Yep, Jackson Lloyd left tackle, no doubt." And I, like you said, I'd never seen anything like that, because I'm like, hey, we got a guy going into his second year, and it's like, okay. I'm confident from his tape. Only played like 50 something snaps, but I watched all of them, and you can see he's got the goods, but it wasn't all the way there yet. Now, what I will say is, normally, and this is even my experience, you take that big jump as an offensive lineman, especially when you're a damn good offensive lineman. You take that jump in your second spring ball and going into your redshirt freshman or sophomore year, that spring ball where everything kind of slows down. You've been in a college weight room for a solid 18 months. You're starting to get a little bit of that grown man strength. So you're not feeling like you're just getting overpowered by these 24-year-old grown men. And it all starts to click a little bit. And so I was curious to see, I'm like, hey, is that going to happen with Jackson Lloyd? And is he just going to run away with the job? Well, they just gave it to him. They clearly feel that confident in him, and he's prototypical left tackle that you want. Now I will say, across the board, I think you got a couple battles. It seems like Mal Waldrip is really battling for that left guard spot. You bring in Rayson Delgatti from Cal Poly, obviously a lower level school. Seems like he is doing a really good job, and he's going up against some big defensive tackles that they have over there. Terrence Green came down from Oregon, who's a massive man. So I think the big question about Rayson Delgatti was, how's he going to handle these big boys in the SEC up front? And it sounds like they are very pleased with how he's looked. Now, the most interesting aspect of all of this was the Michael Carroll, Javen James situation, where Michael Carroll was starting at right tackle. This is a guy that, looked basically All-American. They move him inside the right guard. They say, hey, Javen James coming over from Mississippi State, you're going to play right tackle. And I think there's still not a full decision of what's going to happen there. Are we going to continue to move guys around, shift them around? I think this is another situation, though, where I'm kind of like, hey, I would like to get this fully set as quick as possible. Now, camp battles are camp battles. You have to let them play out. But I'd like to get these one set so we can have some cohesiveness, because that is something that Alabama did a lot last year was, hey, we're going to run 7, 8 different guys. And I will tell you, first off, I hate that. I was in a position battle going in my second year, and I had to switch off every 3-4 drives. It messes with your rhythm so much. It messes with your rhythm with the guy to the left and the right of you in terms of combo blocks and all that type of stuff. But it also messes with my ability when I am getting a really good feel of who this defensive tackle is across from me. Now, granted, I've studied him on tape, but in game, there are certain things that defensive tackle is setting up, or I'm working a couple moves and I'm setting up this move that I'm coming with. And when I get pulled out, or I don't get to actually, go against them for 3 series in a row, it just completely disrupts all of that. So I now obviously new offensive line coach in Adrian Clem, and someone that I'm very high on as an offensive line coach. Aaron Taylor was down at Alabama's practice. Aaron Taylor, the decider of the Joe Moore Award and the creator of the Joe Moore Award, and said he was really impressed with what this offensive line was doing, bringing a physicality to the game. So that got me excited. I think the number one thing you're looking at for this Alabama offensive line is to find a true run concept and have that be your bread and butter. When I watched the tape, they ran everything last year: pin pull, gap scheme, inside zone, outside, everything. Let's find something. It can be whatever you want, but let's find something when it's 3rd and 2, or when we need to go a 12-play drive. Let's run this 4 out of the 12 plays. Let's get into power gap scheme and just maul guys. That's what I want to see out of this offensive line, is that confidence and that ability to be like, hey, we can go out there and just dominate and win a game. Because it seems like it's going to be Keelan Russell, but we don't really know for sure. But no matter what, I don't think you have an elite quarterback yet back there. And there's going to be times where it's going to be on this offensive line to win a game, and let's grind out some yards. And it seems like they have the ability to do it. But once again, we kind of keep coming back to this. And like you said, welcome to the transfer portal era. But I'm curious about the cohesiveness of this unit.
Yeah, it's all about the big C word, chemistry. How quick can you get, everybody get on the same page next to one another and develop that chemistry is huge. He is Landon Tengwall. Landon, this is great stuff, man. I really appreciate you taking some time. Let everybody know where they can find your work.
Yep. You can find me the Landon Tengwall Show on YouTube, Landon Tengwall on Twitter. That is TENGWALL. We got a bunch of film breakdowns out. I'm trying to think what we just did. We just did Ohio State's left tackle. Then we just did, I'm drawing a blank. What's his name? Center from Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah. Michael. Yeah.
Michael. Yeah. Michael's back. Yeah. Caleb. Yeah, we did Caleb. And then today we will have out Cojoe. So we got a bunch of offensive line content coming out. I'm also probably going to do a film breakdown of Sikorsky, the backup guard that is battling for that left guard spot at Texas. So if you're interested, offensive line play, especially SEC offensive line play, I'm going to have all of that covered, especially as we get into the season. But man, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, you're a Big Ten guy, but you are welcome to the SEC tailgate anytime. You know your stuff, man. Thanks so much for the time. We'll do it again soon, man.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you guys for tuning into today's Locked On SEC. Make sure you subscribe and follow so you get all the latest episodes. And a reminder, you can follow me on social media at Chris Gordy. You can follow the show at Locked On SEC. And we'll continue to get you guys ready for the start of the season. Some great guests going to continue to join us throughout the next 2 weeks as we count it down to the start of the season. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 national Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Football. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. Have a great day, everybody.